and this is The Dispatch. Hello there, fellow dispatchers. Today, I want to talk about the census. What is the census? Why is it important? Well, the census, in case you didn't know, is crucial. Central to what makes America a representative democracy. When the Constitution was first drafted, the framers made counting the population, which is fundamentally what the census does, the first job of the federal government for very, very important reasons. Because based on an accurate population count, huge decisions are made. Yep, the census is required by the Constitution, which calls for a, quote, actual enumeration once a decade. It's been that way since 1790. The 2020 population numbers will shape how political power and federal tax dollars are shared in the U.S. over the next 10 years. The number of congressional seats and Electoral College votes each state gets are determined by census numbers, for example. The census also guides how an estimated $1.5 trillion a year in federal funding is distributed to everything from healthcare, schools, roads, and other public services in local communities. The demographic data are used by businesses, for example, to determine where they might build a new supermarket, and by emergency responders to locate injured people after a natural disaster. School districts also rely on it to determine how many teachers they need. So what's the problem? Did you know there's a problem? Well, Trump seems to have a problem with it. He's trying to thwart the census and corrupt it, and on more than one occasion. As of this broadcast, the Census Bureau has not explained why it decided recently to bring an early end to the count. Yep, take one guess. Trump doesn't want a complete count. But it's the law. Trump has been openly assaulting the idea of a fair census since he took office. Initially, you may remember, the Trump administration tried to add a citizenship question to the census. There's never been a citizenship question. Why? Because even though the census is meant to count every person, regardless of citizenship or legal status, the game plan here was to exclude non-citizens from the census because not good for Republicans, right? That won't work. Nice try, though. The Supreme Court stopped that. Thankfully, when it rejected the idea of adding a citizenship question, the rogue president had other plans. Just last month, he was at it again when Trump ordered the federal government not to count undocumented immigrants, right, when allocating the nation's House districts. Yeah, Trump will do whatever he needs to do to stoke the xenophobia of his base. That's all he got. That's all he has now. But the action is unconstitutional and will no doubt be challenged in court. Shenanigans are continuing, though, folks. Ending the census count 1 month early will result in an undercount. That's right, an inaccurate count of rural populations, minority groups, and other low-income sectors. It's tough in general to count the U.S. population, which is anywhere from 330, 340 million people, not to mention during a pandemic. Typically, the Census Bureau delivers its data by the end of the year. But due to the onset of coronavirus, the Bureau asked Congress for an extension through April of 2021. The House passed it, and shocker, the Senate hasn't done anything on it, letting it linger. But just under 2/3 of homes have responded to the census, so less than 67%. The count would normally start April 1st, with the data turned in by December 31st, as I said. But COVID disrupted what would have been all these census workers, knocking on as many doors as possible, asking you, do you rent or own your home? How many people live there? Those questions that formed the basis of the census. Especially in rural and poorer areas, people of color are less likely to be counted by the census, which is, by the way, fine by Trump and his GOP allies. But as the New York Times pointed out in a recent editorial, ending the count sooner than usual hurts Trump's own voters too. The reason being, the poorest states, all of which voted for Trump in 2016, that swath I read in the middle of the map, they depend the most on federal funding. They also tend to have lower census responses. The census is about how federal money will get spent, and the money gets distributed to the states based in part on a census population count. So an undercount or an inaccurate count doesn't just harm Democratic voters in a particular state, it harms all voters. There is a census count every 10 years, so the results of this census, like all censuses, will have much to say about our way of life, our representation, our elections, and the amount of money spent on a variety of programs for the next decade. If we get it wrong, or let Trump get away with trying to thwart it or corrupt it, like he's trying to do, well, we risk not getting crucial things. For example, necessary dollars to states that need funding for children's health care, for example, or Medicaid, which guarantees health care to the impoverished and the indigent. Congress must intervene and do its job. The count must continue and even be extended. Dispatchers, you need to fill out your forms too, and like your life depends upon it, because, well, it does. I'm Adam Epstein, and this is the Dispatch.